Good afternoon. I'm back in the woods. I'm in Central Park, Keskuspuisto, again in Helsinki. I did a bunch of videos where I was down in the center of town, around some of the monuments, famous buildings, piazze, and I decided to come back. I took a long walk. I was all over the city today, and I decided I'd come back to this spot that I love, where there's all of these big boulders. There's kind of like a high hill, and then you're surrounded by this lovely mixed forest. And I've discovered over the last couple weeks that I'm not the only person who finds this particular place to be very special. And there's one family that said that this has always been their spot for decades. I was like, wow, well, we both have good taste. And so I thought I was feeling this poem today. I mean, I refer to it in my mind quite a bit, but here we have 14th century Persian poet Hafez, one of the great spiritual poets of all time. People call him esoteric mystic. But he also had a tremendous sense of humor. And from what I've been told by people who can read it in the original, that it's far more whimsical, fun. There's a different energy, but still, I think Bly worked on this poem over a long time, and then he often changed words when he would read it in public again, away from what he originally published it as. And he published it. You can get a sense of how Hafez is always bringing up the contradictions and the hypocrisy in society. So Bly called this angels knocking on the tavern door. I think he did like 30 or so Hafez poems many years ago, but he was always reworking and trying to get the right word to express what he thought Hafez was getting at in our contemporary society. So here we're going to do this one, and I know Robert loved this, and he referred to it often. And Hafez was also known as the tongue of the unseen, which is something I had come across before, but I just saw that again today and was like, yes, yeah, the tongue of the unseen. Like, you don't just call someone that in a very casual way. So Hafez says, the goods produced in the factories of space and time are not all that great. Bring some wine, because the good things of this world are not all that great. Heart and soul are born for ecstatic conversation with the soul of souls. That's it. If that fails, heart and soul are not in the end that great. Don't become so indebted to the tuba and sidra trees just to have some shade in heaven. When you look closely, my flowering cypress friend, you'll see these trees are not all that great. The true kingdom comes to you without any breaking of bones. If that weren't so, achieving the garden through your own labors wouldn't be all that great. In the 5 days remaining to you in this rest stop, before you go to the grave, take it easy. Give yourself time, because time is not all that great. You who offer wine, we are waiting on the lip of the ocean of ruin. Take this moment as a gift, for the distance between the lip and the mouth is not all that great. The state of my being, miserable and burnt to a crisp, is proof enough that my need to put it into words is not all that great. You Puritans on the cold stones, you are not safe from the tricks of God's zeal. The distance between the cloister and the tavern you love is not all that great. The name Hafez has been well inscribed in the books, but in our clan of disreputables, the difference between profit and loss is not all that great. And so what we have there is Hafez is getting us to, obviously reflect very deeply on life, on the winged chariot that pulls us through, but also he's like kind of like listing off the kind of obsessions that we might have in our life. Oh, I got to get this done. I don't got time. This is important. I got to get this done. Got to get this done. And he's saying, where are we in the week yet? Another post said that. Where are you in the week yet? Is it Thursday yet? Hurry, cry now, for soon Sunday night will come. And so that's day 4. Yeah. And he's talking about 5 days left in this rest stop. But what I also like is that he has a great humor about it, and he keeps bringing up wine over and over and over again. And you know why? Because he's from Shiraz, and it's very interesting. I was thinking about that. One reason I meditated on this poem a lot in the last 10 years is because I owned a wine shop, and I was always pouring wine. My little tavern of disrepute. But one of the many mysteries in the history of wine is Shiraz. The great Persian city that Hafez was born in. I believe he's buried there. I believe people still, at least Robert claimed that up until the 90s, at least school children were memorizing Hafez's poetry. They'd actually go to his tomb and recite his poems, school children. But it's interesting because Shiraz was known as a wine center, and then of course Australian Shiraz became very famous. When was that? Was that the 90s? I think 90s through the early 2000s. I believe that was a huge trend in the wine trade, and of course the present day grape Syrah originates from southeast France. The Rhone Valley is where it has its most magical expression, like Hermitage, all those Cornas, all those regions, but there's still some people who think that the Shiraz wine refers to the city that's in Iran, and it's confusing because they were famous for wine, but they were famous for a white wine that they made either like super dry or kind of a sweet wine that is said to have rivaled Sherry, or the famous slightly oxidized wine made in a very interesting and specific method in Jerez de la Frontera in Spain. And that also brought up that kind of like curiosity, oddity. There's this exotic word, Shiraz, that somehow got adopted for Syrah wine, mostly in the southern hemisphere, like South Africa and Australia, though some North American places also call the grape Shiraz. And so it's like that wine that's lost to history, and that one of the things that made that city famous, is still adopted, and it still creates confusion today. And then also, sherry is one of the glories of of all fermented drinks, especially when you learn and see how it's made and the variations. So many different variations that you can make from sherry, and it's like people say, of course it got corrupted and commercialized and faked into something that's, disgusting and sweet, but the real sherries are one of the crowning glories of the wine industry. And why is it called sherry? And so one of the stories that I've been told is that it's because of it was very, very popular in UK, in England, and they had trouble saying it out in Spanish, Jerez, and so it eventually morphed into sherry. It wasn't, they wouldn't say Jerez or Jerez, however, I don't speak Spanish, but be something along those lines. And so it's like, you think about that, you think about this poem, you think about the sentiment he had, the energy he had, the spirit he had, the visions he had, how that survived over the centuries, and how, a genius poet like Robert Bly was able to find the words to set it in our contemporary context so that it feels alive and it feels relevant in our day. And then you combine that with these wine traditions and these naming of wines that are still largely mysterious, not definitive, again, kind of lost to history, and that most people are completely unaware of. And it makes you think about how we hold and transmit culture, and what stories that we have, and the ways that we can observe and feel and experience our world, so that we can set that free, we can push that out. Hafez was always against repression. He was always for, moving with the spirit, feeling that alignment deep within your soul, and being able to transmit that out in a way that touched other people, or so we think. And then they called him the tongue of the unseen. And we don't have a lot of that energy in contemporary society. For many ways, it's blocked in so many ways by all these demands, all the things that he mentions in that poem, where he's just like, oh, come on guys, like, just let it go, let it go, let it go. It's like, maybe if you captured something of the real spirit, you could do in one day what takes you a year to do. I saw that idea somewhere today as well. But anyway, when I start rambling like that, I know it's time to wrap up. And I'm going to read it again. If you've made it this far, you've made it this far. But I'm going to see what kind of energy I can bring to it. Again, because it's lovely in Robert's words, and I love the fact that he was always changing things, but obviously trying to stay true to a form and a construct. The goods produced in the factories of space and time are not all that great. Bring some wine, because the good things of this world are not all that great. Heart and soul are born for ecstatic conversation with the soul of souls. That's it. If that fails, heart and soul are not in the end that great. Don't become indebted to the tuba and sidra trees just to have some shade in heaven. When you look closely, my flowering cypress friend, you'll see these trees are not all that great. The true kingdom comes to you without any breaking of bones. If that weren't so, achieving the garden through your own labors wouldn't be all that great. In the 5 days remaining to you in this rest stop before you go to the grave, take it easy. Give yourself time, because time is not all that great. You who offer wine, we are waiting on the lip of the ocean of ruin. Take this moment as a gift, for the distance between the lip and the mouth is not all that great. The state of my being, miserable and burnt to a crisp, is proof enough that my need to put it into words is not all that great. You Puritans on the cold stones, you are not safe from the tricks of God's zeal. The distance between the cloister and the tavern you love is not all that great. The name Hafez has been well inscribed in the books, but in our clan of disreputables, the difference between profit and loss is not all that great. So I'll leave you there. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I look forward to seeing you further on down the trail. And enjoy these transcendent fall days. Thank you.